Hear these words from the Epistle of James, chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete and not lacking anything. Word of God for the people of God. I don't remember the first time I read these words in James. I've read the book of James many, many times. It's one of my favorites. I think it's extraordinarily practical. It shows us how the Christian life is supposed to be lived. But I just don't remember the first time I read those words. But I remember the first time I crashed into them. I remember the first time I crashed into these words of verses 2 through 4, and they came crumbling down upon me like so many concrete blocks or boulders. It was January the 16th, 2014, when Nancy and I got the word that our younger grandson Fitz had leukemia. We were devastated by the news, as you can imagine we would be, as you would be had you received news like that. The verses that ran through my mind at that time were verses out of Romans 8:28, that we know that God works in all things for our good and His glory, and that ran through my head, and there were others. This verse was troublesome to me. This set of God's words struck me as oh so challenging. How am I supposed to consider it pure joy when we have gotten news so devastating? The circumstances didn't permit it. They were traumatic and all the rest. And yet, God never gives us instructions that He does not empower us to follow them. And so when God says in these words, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, there's a because there. Because as we go through these things, you and I, we experience the work of God. We see it firsthand. We feel His presence in our lives. We feel His touch on our shoulder. And so as we go through this, we don't find our joy in the circumstances. We find our joy in the God and the Christ who is in the circumstances with us, in whom we have trusted for all eternal things, and in whom we know we can trust for all temporal things. So as you and I are going through a season of distress and uncertainty, we can count our joy not in the circumstances, but in the God who transcends them and in all things sustains His people. And temporally and in eternal ways, now and forever, it is so. And as Nancy and I have gone through the challenges that we faced with Fitz and his 3 years of treatment, with her own bilateral kidney cancer in 2015, it returned in 2018, for which she's now being treated. We've never found the joy in the cancer. We have found joy in the Christ. And so it is that our circumstances, even if we had won a lottery, the source of our joy ought to be Christ, the source of joy, the standard of joy, and the one who gives so freely to us in all times and circumstances. Brothers and sisters, this really is the day the Lord has made. You and I can rejoice, we can be glad in it, and we can count it all joy that as we are going through challenging and uncertain times, our God still reigns, God still rules, He still empowers, He still sustains. May He be praised now and forever. Amen.